So thank you all for being here and welcome to the grantee orientation for our 2022 Round 2 awardees, and congratulations to you all. I'm excited to have learned a lot about your projects so far and learn more as you get closer to delivering them. Some have already happened. I'm seeing Nina on from the Great Northern. My kiddo and I went to our common home, and he's 8. We were in front of the Union Depot for like an hour jumping around and interacting with a very cool piece of art that I think is already gone, unfortunately. So hopefully some people got to check that out. But yeah, we've got lots of great stuff that's going to be coming up this next year, in addition to a few things that have already occurred. But yeah, so welcome and congratulations to everybody. So we're going to give you, hopefully answer the big questions about our contracting process, our reporting process, and the things to really keep in mind, and kind of set you up for success in making things run as smoothly as possible. We're going to focus today on our special projects and organizational development, because the way that we run our capital projects is a little different. So if you are doing a capital project, I think I saw Center for um, um, you're Nora, same name as me, and your organization name is escaping me right now, but you can probably jump off, and we can reconnect and just talk very specifically about your project. And I think you might be the only one that I saw that has a capital project, but thank you for showing up, and we will catch you, because we are really going to focus on a different type of contract today. Most of our projects are special projects and organizational development, all of our arts activities. So we'll focus on those today. And one place that you're going to want to know about and always be able to refer back to, where we just keep a place to download our forms and other information, is going to be our website, which is stpaul.gov/cultural star. And then you can click on our information for Cultural Star grantee recipients button there. And that is going to have a whole bunch of all this information that we're going to cover is going to be listed there as well. So that's going to be a great resource. I'll stop here and just kind of see, make sure we've kicked off well. Everybody feels like they know they're in the right place. Grace, do you want to? I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself either.
Sure. I just want to flag, someone mentioned in the comments that they're hearing a significant echo on your end. I just want to make sure. I'm hearing you okay, but I wanted to make sure that everyone else is able to hear you okay as well.
Yeah, and a great way to chime in is going to be through the chat function, which is at the top of the screen, or feel free to raise your hand or just unmute, because I think it's a pretty not too big of a group to just jump in. You might have the same question that someone else has. So anyone else getting an echo or feedback? I was hoping my headphones were working properly today.
Looks like others are hearing you well, and I'm hearing you well too. So
yeah.
All right.
You are okay.
Yes. Probably the best thing to do would be for anybody having an issue to jump off and then jump back on and see if that resolves it. And if you miss anything, Grace and I will be able to fill you in. But yeah, Grace, do you want to just introduce yourself too, since you're off mute and able to say what your role is? And
Sure. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Grace Bubel, and I'm a project management technician for the economic development team here at the city. And I manage most of the Cultural Star project, so I will be working with many of you throughout the contracting and the closing out processes. So welcome. We're happy to see you, and congratulations on your award.
awesome. Thanks, Grace. And Grace, this is I think Grace's third round now. So she's an old pro and just works really well, very responsive. And really, I think the best advice I can give any grantee is, if you're really wondering what the next steps are or how to fill something out, we really are here to answer your questions. That is we just want to help you out. You shouldn't sit around wondering what to do next, and oh, I can't figure out what they want for this section of this form or whatever. Just reach out, and we're really here to help. And yeah, Grace is just incredibly helpful, and she'll be able to answer your questions. So yeah, with that, we can jump in. Actually, on the information for Cultural Star Grant recipients and in your email about the award was a list of all the grantees from this round. And that list is going to give you the contact information for myself or Grace and help you remember which one of us is your project manager. It's either me or Grace for the most part. It's also going to have some helpful information that that helps us reference which project you are, although we really get to know you, so we always know. But it's different numbers and things that are tied to your grant that help us um, work with our accounting team and all that, and get the contracts and payments out. So everybody's contract dates are going to be the same. It's January 15th of this year through January 14th of 2024. So all activities and all expenses that the STAR grant pays for have to take place within those dates. It's going to have a couple numbers like your SIF number, which is your organization's number. It helps us know how much money you've gotten from PED over the years. Your cultural star number, which is going to have our year 22, and then a number that starts with a 6 for round 2, and an account code. It's also going to have your project name, your type, whether you got an in cultural district or out of cultural district award, which is very important, and you likely know which type you got. Is your project downtown or not? And your award amount, super important, as well as who your project manager is with the contact info at the bottom. So that's a great place to find our information, and just know you can always find us and reach out to us. So next we're going to go over the steps of working with your grant. And basically, there's pretty much 3 steps that we're going to go over. We're going to go over the first step of getting under contract and how to get the 80% advance payment. The next step is going to be implementation and things to keep in mind, like keeping certain documentation and crediting Cultural Stars funding as you implement your project. And then the last step 3, which is going to be around reporting and closing out and requesting your final 20% payment. So we'll start with the first step, of course, which is getting under contract. And what we ask is that you get under contract before your project takes place, unless you are the minority of folks whose project took place like right at the same time that we awarded. We were a little bit delayed in approving the project, so a couple have already taken place. But for the most part, you really got to get this process underway before your project is going to start, or at least when the public portion of your project takes place. So really begin as soon as possible. You have everything you need as of today to be able to do it. So we really want to get you started. And then we do have a hard deadline for getting under contract, which is 6 months after the project was approved, which was on January 25th. So July 25th, 2023, you'll get tons of reminders if you haven't gotten under contract by that date, that you must do that before that date. And we actually can withdraw the award if that doesn't happen. So we'll give you lots of reminders. We'll really make sure it happens. And what it means to get under contract is to sign our grant agreement. And we have 2 important attachments that we need from you that will be part of the grant agreement. The first is the statement of work, where you're going to kind of list out the top high-level basics of your application, but it allows you to kind of finalize any details that weren't final by the time, or at the time that you applied in September. So importantly, you're going to want to list a budget where you will make a final decision that's going to be in writing, and you're going to be committed to about what you're going to spend your Cultural Star money on. What budget categories are you going to use the money for? And we're also going to want to find out where your matching funds are going to come from, because we'll have you document that you did have at least a one-to-one match that went toward the project from other sources. So the things to really keep in mind are that when you're getting the statement of work ready, the biggest piece of advice I could say is that once you pick budget categories that you're going to charge to the grant, there is flexibility on the amounts that are charged to each category that you select as coming out of the STAR money, but there is no flexibility to add new categories. So you really want to think ahead about, and then also the fact that we require documentation in extreme detail, I would say, um, of every expense that you charge to the grant. So if you're doing artist fees, we're going to look for your artist contract and a copy of the check to pay the artist, or like a receipt that the artist was paid for this thing. Um, if you're charging stage rental, we're going to need that invoice that you got from the stage rental company. So you really, a really good way to plan ahead is to list a couple budget categories so you have some flexibility. And then also to pick the budget categories that are really easy to document. Like if you have a very expensive item in your budget where one invoice is just kind of like almost your whole budget amount, that should be the one you use for this grant, because it's just going to be easy to document at the end. There's no need to think about the value and like, oh, is it most important to fund the artists because that's what St. Paul wants to give our money to? Yes, that's great, but it's more about the project happening at all and our, you know, attention to detail on the documentation and wanting that to be easy for everybody. With matching funds, the documentation we require is that those funds were committed, received. We don't have to see how you spent the matching funds, so we don't need receipts for like your grant amount times two. We just need to see like a letter from your other funders, a letter from your board treasurer that you committed additional fundings, things like that, that are kind of documents you probably already have in your records, like a grant award letter or your ticket sales or things like that, that are pretty easy to document. So we try to keep that part pretty simple. So the statement of work it looks long, it's pretty short because it's kind of those high level points about your project, nailing down the location, really, and then importantly, choosing that those STAR expenses on your budget and where the money's going to go from the grant. Any questions on the statement of work? It is downloadable as a form from our website, and then we can also, Grace and I can send out emails to everybody on our project list to make sure you have it. But it's right there, ready to go on our grantee website page. The next thing that we want to talk about is insurance. And I think for this, I'm actually going to jump to our insurance sample, because I think that's going to give the best information. So basically, if you have gotten grants from us in the past, you'll know that we had kind of standard. Oh, we do have a question from Raj.
I do.
Do you want?
Thank you. This is Raj from Seva, and we are one of the grantees of the Cultural Star Grant, and thank you so much for that. However, the practice is I have a question about occupancy and space rental, as well as our own place, that the use of it will be used for the staff, for the matching fund, and also for um, charging to the grant some of the space money for the artist to use. And then the final will be where we are going to display. Let's say we are already thinking of using Wellstone Center as our final event that we are going to do there. And would the space be covered by this grant, rental of the space?
Yes. Yeah, we pretty much will allow you, we have a good handle on the range of expenses that these projects entail. And absolutely, facilities rental, artist fees, personnel, administrative personnel, your promotions, printing, websites, tech, support, yeah, space rental, equipment
Audio,
rental.
visual, social media,
Hmm.
marketing, all that will be counted.
Yes, you could use, really the only thing you cannot use the money for is food and beverages. So that is a category that's just decided at the city level that we do not fund those things. So if you are,
Even though culturally speaking, no event happens without food.
that is so true. And I guess our position is use your matching funds for that,
Okay,
because
thanks.
everybody does have a requirement for one-to-one match.
Yeah,
So there is some we kind of assume flexibility on how you could spend your funding that are coming from other sources.
yes.
But yeah, great question. And then to also just remember, if you do have a project that's been awarded as a cultural district, being in the cultural district, like your project and many others, that at least a portion of the project, public facing portion of the project, would be in downtown St. Paul. So it looks like one of your locations would be at the Landmark Center.
Yes,
And then other portions might be at the Wellstone Center or
yes,
places in neighborhoods of St. Paul.
absolutely.
And if you have portions that are taking place in other cities, that those would just be completely separate from this grant, that you would kind of identify a different budget for those. So your matching funds would not be able to go toward, a production that's taking place in Minneapolis or something like that. You'd kind of want to, and that might be a unique situation that I don't think will come up for many of you, but if that's something that's going on with your project, we'd want to kind of give you the right guidance about how to include that. These are, city funds, so we want to make sure you're within city limits on on your whole budget, both your grant award and your matching funds. And it looks like Susie's got a question. I saw your article in the messenger, by the way. So congrats on the sirens. And you're on mute.
Hi, I have a question. Because we already had to pay a lot of our space rental ahead of time, but we have, of course, documentation, but do we have to have paid it on or after January 1st of 2023?
It does get tricky to pay advances with this money. But we can definitely talk about that and see if it would be a possibility, given that the event, like, if you think of when you're incurring the expense, it does come down to the event date itself. So we may have some flexibility there, but typically it's best if you can choose items that will be incurred within the dates, which would mean like that if you're paying advances, um, it can be hard to cover those expenses.
Yeah. I think my question is that can we use the receipts that, like, I just paid for a big space rental 2 days ago, and that was, or is it once you get the grant, or is it January 15th of 2023 on?
It is January 15th, 2023 as the
Great.
start date. So anything you incurred on or after that date is going to be easy to approve. We would definitely be able to include those.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Let's see, any other questions? Since Colleen?
Yes, hi, how are you
Hi,
today?
Colleen. Good, how are you?
Good. I had a question regarding matching funds that are coming from a pending grant, or the hope to come through. I'm wondering, I would imagine with this statement of work and putting this all together, this is to get the 80%, a check for 80%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. So what I'm wondering is if you're including matching funds in there, and in the original grant application, we had put a certain amount would be hypothetically, hopefully coming from MRAC. If that does not come through, or I'm waiting for that to come through, how does that work out with timing of submitting this grant agreement, I guess?
Yeah, we do want to consider that at the end. I mean, we would, if you're thinking that this is all going to come together and this is how much your project's going to cost, so you're going to find a way to pay for it at the amount of your grant award times 2, then you should feel confident that you could put that in your statement of work. If there's some change that's happened and you feel like your project budget has decreased, we do only pay on actuals. So we're really going to look at what did you actually spend. If you didn't spend the full amount, you would not receive the full amount. And if you didn't get the full one-to-one match, that would also reduce the amount that you could be awarded and ultimately be paid out of the grant. So it just kind of depends. It's a little bit of a guessing game, it sounds like, and taking a little bit of a risk. And it would be up to you if you want to wait to get under contract until you hear from MRAC. The way they operate, your project can't even start before the award comes through. So I think that gives us a little flex, I would say, like to wait until you hear from MRAC. That might be a good way to go. Because we do have until July to finalize our contract with you, and you may want to wait.
Okay, yeah, and that sort of answered my questions, whether or not the matching funds were going to come from MRAC or other donated funds within the organization. That was just something that I was wondering on how, if we're waiting for MRAC, how that might affect the timing of things. So, okay, all right, great, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, if sources on the matching funds changed, we would just accept whatever the ultimate result is, and just want to see that the amount had been achieved. And just a reminder too, that up to 30% of your match, your one-to-one match, can be in the form of in-kind or volunteer time or a combination. So with volunteer time, it's not what you get paid, it's actual free labor, real volunteers. And we value their time at $15 an hour, and we do have a way to track it. So we do want to see that they actually put those hours in. And we have a form you could use. Anytime you want to know, like, oh, do you have a way to us document? We have forms. Just ask us. We've got lots of forms. So that is one possibility. And then in kind would be, things like the space was donated and the space place could tell you what their typical charge would be. And that would be the value of that matching cost. And that's going to be up to 30%. Of your match can be a combination of in-kind and volunteer time. So that can help people get to, kind of get to the max of their match.
Thank you. That answers my question.
All right, great. So yeah, really good questions on statement of work stuff. And then again, if you have more detailed questions too, Grace and I will be able to connect with you individually. So yeah, I will get into our fun insurance conversation now. Everybody's favorite topic. Grace and I feel like we could start an agency after this. We've learned so much about it. But if you've gotten grants from us in the past, you might be disappointed, although maybe not surprised, that we have increased our requirements to be more in line with what we require of our professional service agreements, our public art agreements, just kind of there's an across the board requirement that is higher than it was at one time. And for your smaller organizations, this can be a burden, and we do want to talk to you about what makes sense for your organization, but I'll get into the details here as we dive in. So I'm just going to go straight to our sample insurance certificate, which is going to be on our website again, and Grace and I can get this to you. So what we're going to be looking for is our each occurrence and the personal injury levels are 1.5 million, and our general aggregate and products level is 2 million each for each of those lines. As you can see here up in the top commercial general liability portion of the certificate. Some groups can justify like $1 million each occurrence, and we can talk to you about getting a waiver, but generally speaking, this is pretty strict. It's not our preference to offer waivers, but we know that it might be a factor. On this lower portion of the certificate, you might see that a group might have $1 million each occurrence, but then an umbrella policy of $1 million, and that works as well. It's often a pretty affordable way to have the limits that we require is to add on an umbrella policy. We also require automobile insurance to make sure that those people working for you that are driving to your projects are covered. And if there is like really no driving involved, if you could really justify that, there's no driving during the work day, we could work with you on that. But generally speaking, a lot of you are going to have auto coverage. And it's typically going to be that we require these amounts for bodily injury and everything, but we've also been accepting combined single limit, this top box being filled out. So just kind of, you could show us whatever you have currently and we can take a look if it works. And then the last is the workers' comp. So if you have employees, you likely have workers' comp policies. So we would want to see your policy. And we've learned that our limits are a little higher than what a lot of small nonprofits have. So just let us know what you have. We are going to try to ask everybody to have these 500,000 limits. But, like I said, just show us what you've got and we'll see if we can get there. And then finally, these would all be where we are listed as an additional insured on this coverage. So we'd have the City of St. Paul listed here at the bottom as the certificate holder. And then you would also ask your broker or insurance company to include this description that we're listed as additional insured, and whatever all this language means about duty to defend and indemnify. Super technical. So yeah, that's I do think, it's a challenge that a lot of your grantee, your funders don't require this, but this is city policy to reduce our risk, kind of thinking of like if somebody comes to your event and trips on something and they see that the City of St. Paul contributed money, then they go where the money is. And we're pretty risk averse around here. So we'll kind of walk you through if you have any questions about how to meet these requirements, or if these are particularly burdensome or really, I don't think this applies to us because, we really want to hear about the situation for your specific project and your organization, and see if we can work with you at all. And otherwise, this might be something that you're just able to provide, and we're good to go. And
Hey,
this
Nora,
would
it looks
be
like Raj has a question.
okay, great. And I'll stop sharing because everybody can go ahead and grab this off our website. So yeah, Raj.
So I have a question with this additional insurance required. Will that cost be bear by the grant?
Yes. So far, I have to look into this, but we have oftentimes not covered the extra cost of insurance as one of the grant costs. Again, thinking of it like as an organizational or, item that can be covered by the matching funds, but that's something we need to look into as this becomes more of a burden.
We do have a certificate holder, like we are covered, but
right.
the additional insurance there may be some small charge.
Yes.
That's
yep.
what I'm looking at.
That's
We
true.
can
Yeah,
put the
it could
matching
be.
fund as the insurance covered right now, but as a certificate holder or certificate of accord, that we can give as of now. But additional insurance, the insurance company may need more coverage.
Right. yes, it can have a cost associated with it that's sometimes pretty nominal and sometimes can be a burden. So that's a good point, and that's something we've needed to clarify with having this new requirements that could be more expensive. And I know you're a new grantee, so you're not familiar with what we used to require, but we do really recognize that it could be a cost burden, and so that's something we want to clarify. But I don't have the answer right now. Our past policy has been we don't cover insurance costs with our grant money. But I think given the changes in our requirements, that's worth revisiting. So stay tuned on that.
Thank you.
Great. And it looks like there might be a question in the chat. Oh, Grace is answering some of the questions. And yes, we are going to have this PowerPoint, and this the video of this orientation will be posted on our website later. And the insurance sample is posted there currently. All right, so I'm going to go back to our orientation slides. All right, so back to what's required for getting under contract. The statement of work form, the insurance certificate, that's pretty much it for getting under contract. Those will be attachments to the contract. We will need your W-9 form if you either are new to getting funding from the city or if you've moved and have a new address or new organization name. So that applies to some of you, and we do have a W-9 form available in the list of all our forms on our grantee website. So a couple things to know about if these apply to you. I think there might be a couple groups that are using a fiscal sponsor, and if that is the case, our contract will actually be with the fiscal sponsor. But usually the fiscal sponsor doesn't have a lot of the details of your project, and you would fill out, the statement of work, kind of work with Springboard or whoever it is that you're using as your fiscal sponsor to make sure that you've got what information of theirs needs to be on there and what information of yours. You would not need a W-9 in this case if we've already worked with your fiscal sponsor, and I believe if it's only Springboard is the one that I'm thinking of, then we're good to go. You would list their address and everything on your statement of work. And yeah, we'll just kind of work in partnership. We're really accustomed to having fiscal sponsorships, and we make it pretty smooth and easy for you to get everything required. Grant projects, grant award amounts that are over 25,000 will have one of our compliance areas that applies, and it's called the Vendor Outreach Program. And so what this means is that areas of your budget where you can source a vendor from the open market, kind of, like printing or whoever designs your website, that kind of, there's a lot of possible vendors out there that could give you these services, that we would ask that you try to find certified vendors that are small, minority owned and women owned, and try to give them the opportunity to bid on that part of your project. What's definitely understood in this program is that most of your budget items are specialty. You need to hire the artists and actors and dancers and photographers and everybody that knows how to work in your field and in your art form. And so those do not apply. We would let you know which areas of your budget we would ask you to make efforts. And in fact, it's a pretty cool resource. We have a website with all these certified vendors, and it's a great way to kind of find vendors that you might want to give business to. And so, yeah, we'll get you the information about how to comply with that. And this is based on your award amount. If it's over 25,000, then this applies to your project. And last, just that you are up to date with the Minnesota Secretary of State on your business filing. So I think everybody is. We already checked. So once you get that statement of work and certificate of insurance to either myself or to Grace, depending on who your project manager is, then we're able to fill out the contract for you, get your payment request form prepared, and then we route all that for review on our end and then for e-signature to you first and then to the city folks that need to sign it. And as the payment request form for the 80% will be one of the pages of your contract packet. And so that processes automatically as soon as your contract is executed and the check is mailed to your organization within about 2 weeks. It usually takes between us printing it and it going through the mail. So that is our big contracting step and getting your 80% advance. Somehow this turned into more steps than I thought. I think of it as 3 steps, like step 1, get under contract, step 2, implement your project, but I've got it as step 3 here. Basically with implementing your project, we want to make sure you're aware to keep all your invoices and receipts and all the stuff that we're going to ask for later, your contracts, so that it's handy and you can easily pass it along to us at the end. We want to make sure you are crediting STAR funding in your promotions. So putting it on your program, on your poster, on your social media, whatever kind of makes sense. And we'll ask for just 1 copy of that at the end. And then your matching funds documentation too, your grant award letters, checks from your sponsors, your ticket sale records, donation records, things like that, to be able to just hand it over at the end and feel ready for that. And then we've got closeout and getting the rest of your payment at the end. So this process can all be done through the Zoom grant system where you applied for the program. You can log back in there and do all the, upload all the documentation and fill out the final report in there after your project's taken place. So basically you just log back in, you will get a payment request form that's unique to your project budget from myself or Grace that you'll be able to fill out and sign and upload to the portal. You'll also be able to upload all your expense documentation there, what the expense was for, your invoice, receipts, contracts, and then how it was paid. So like a check copy, bank statements, things like that. And again, a reminder that if they're incurred within the contract dates, that's how they'll be approved. And also your matching funds documentation, like grant award letters, sponsorship agreements, things like that. 1 item of promotional materials or your website that shows that you gave credit to the STAR funding for the project. And last, for some of you, it would be any compliance reporting. Usually what you're doing is just filling out a quick spreadsheet that lists which vendors you did use for those areas of your budget where it applied. So like which printer did you use? What's their company name, address, and how much did you pay them? So pretty straightforward. Oops, sorry, jumped ahead by mistake. And last, our final report, which is pretty brief. It's just 5 questions. So we try to keep it simple and just a high level information that helps us understand the outcomes of your project. And again, that's all going to be on zoomgrants.com where you applied. And the most important thing to know is that you just log in with your applicant account. So whose ever email address has the account that hit submit to submit your application, that is the same login that you're going to want to use. And again, just to go over these vendor outreach program requirements, if that applies to you. Actually, what we could do is take questions now, and then we can get into vendor outreach with anybody that has that applying to their project, so that those who need that information can get it. So it looks like Ritika has a question.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I had a quick question about giving credit to Cultural Star in, on the socials and promo materials. Is there appropriate language that we can use, or are there downloadable logos, or is there a template for that credit?
We do have pretty broad requirements in the information for culture on that webpage with the forms and everything. Is also going to be the logos that you can download. So we have a color logo, we have a black and white logo. It's your choice which one you use. And then there's also language that you could copy and paste from the website. This activity is supported in part by the City of St. Paul Cultural Sales Tax Revitalization Program.
Great.
But you can just use the logo. If the logo's there, that's fine. You don't have to put the accompanying language. It's kind of like a menu. You just pick whichever makes the most sense for the use that you're gonna, where you're gonna place it and the design of your website or poster or whatever you're using it on.
Right. Thank you. I actually had another question if I had the time for that.
Of course.
So in the statement of work, are we also required to submit artist contracts, individual artist contracts at this stage, or does that come at a later stage? I know you kind of touched upon it, but I was a little confused about that.
Oh, sure. That would all come at closeout at the end.
Okay.
So you'll have time to pull that all together.
Okay.
But the thing you do want to know is that that you will be easily able to document all those expenses that you choose to use the STAR grant funds for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of an act of planning ahead and knowing what to expect at the end around the documentation of your expenses.
Right. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Good question. Let's see. For Thomas, it sounds like you had a question about income tax return. So, is that actually about your W-9? So the W-9s are going to be we're with the organization that we're granting to, so your nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
And then let's see, we had a question about 30% of the match can be volunteer labor with a yes. So up to 30% of the matching funds can be a combination of volunteer labor and in kind. And we value volunteer labor at $15 an hour. And the value of your in kind is typically going to be set by whoever is giving you that in kind donation and the value that they place on that thing that they've given you. Oftentimes it's space or professional services. And so they would just give you an invoice and say that it was free. And it would just say somewhere that they had discounted you the amount that they would normally charge. All right. Well, with that, I think we'll keep those folks on that have an award of over 25,000. It's not 25,000, it's over 25,000. And so I think there's quite a few of you on the call, and we'd be happy just to stay on and tell you what that looks like. But it sounds like Thomas has one more question about paying contractors. We do not have requirements about going wages.
Okay, so whatever the market.
Whatever you negotiate with your artists and contractors is what you should pay them. Oftentimes, we have at least one play that is going through the actors union, and that's up to them to kind of resolve and figure out how are they meeting those requirements.
Okay, that clarifies it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Well, just want to thank everyone that was on the call today who is ready to jump off and doesn't need the vendor outreach program information, and just say we are super excited to work with you all. We're very excited for your projects and everything you're doing for the city of St. Paul. You are what makes St. Paul so great, and we're so grateful to all of you, and excited for the year. And we'll be in touch. And I know Nina's going to stay on probably.
Thank
Let's
you.
see. Thank you very much. Let's see. I don't know if we have that many others that are actually on this call. Angie, are you staying on? Yep, Angie.
Yes, I'm here.
And SEWA. I don't know. How do you say your organization?
We just
Raj?
Seva.
How do you say it?
Seva.
Seva. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Welcome. We're so excited to have you
Yes.
as a new
Very
grantee.
excited, yes.
And I'm hoping I had something to do with it because the the directors of Pangea Theater are my neighbors.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
And I was like, why don't you guys apply for Cultural Star? And they're like, because we're in Minneapolis. And I'm like, well, just do stuff in St. Paul and we'll give you some money.
I know. Deepankar and Meena, they're great. They're
Yes,
absolutely great.
amazing
Yes.
people. Yes, such
Amazing.
community builders.
And also we're also friends with Angie Wang.
Mm.
Media
Oh,
Access.
great. Yeah.
Great.
Hey, Raj.
Hey,
To hear your voice.
Great. Yeah, we've done work together for a long time.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, the arts community is an incredible, yeah, we're so lucky. Well, great. So just wanted to get you all on here about our vendor outreach program. So basically what will happen is that you do have some requirements, but we try to make it pretty easy because the program is very oriented to larger grants that are construction usually. So, but this is all about vendor opportunities and getting business to disadvantaged vendors. So it's, probably within your mission, and it's kind of a cool resource. So basically, we are going to send your statement of work to our vendor outreach program monitor, Sarah Nirmala. And Sarah is going to take a look and assess where she thinks that you would have opportunities in your budget to um, find vendors in the open market. So it won't be anything that is specialty. It will be really like your rentals and printing and stuff like that. You might already have a printer too, and that's fine. It's just, we're going to want to know more about like how you chose that vendor and maybe a good faith effort. But for the most part, it's you just kind of report back on which vendors you use for the areas that are identified. And it actually will apply to your full budget, not just the STAR funded part of your budget. So like Great Northern, it will only apply to our common home, obviously, nothing else that you did. So it is just that project specific, but it's both your other funding as well as the STAR funding that we look for those opportunities. So we will let you know, and then we can have a meeting. If you would like a meeting, if you feel like you'd like to kind of go over point by point with Sarah, and she can give some guidance on this. But otherwise, we'll just let you know what the areas are. At that point, what we'll ask you to do is use our certified vendor database and see, can you find any vendors that can do what you need, what services you need? So you'd type in, printer or like whatever search um, theme you're looking for, what type of service you're looking for, and it'll pop out a bunch of vendors. It'll probably give you a lot more vendors than do what you actually need, but then you'll take, go on their Google them, find out more, and see if they have the right kind of services for what you're trying to get done. And from there, at the end of your project, you'll fill out a vendor ID sheet. And this is like one of our easiest forms. You truly just like list the name and address of the vendor that you used for those categories and the amount of money that you paid them, and email that to Sarah. And I can show you all the website. We have a certified vendor database. It's pretty big because we work with Ramsey County, Hennepin County, and the city of Minneapolis. So there's a lot of companies on there because they can get business by being listed on this in this database. In fact, I just found out Forecast Public Art is one of our vendors. So a lot of companies that have consulting and contracting, they use it for people to find them. So let me just share my screen here. So I'll show you how I got here. I think we have a link to this on our website, and if we don't, I will make sure that there is one. But basically, I went to our vendor outreach program on stpaul.gov. I just used the magnifying glass to look up vendor outreach program. This is going to give you the overview of what this program is. And then there's the CERT program website, which is where these vendors are. And this system is free to use. I use it when I need work done at my house. It really is free for anybody to use. So I saw Raj, I think, asked for architects. Go ahead and use this. We're happy to have this get used. So you just go to the central CERT directory. And from here, you can, kind of use broad search terms. You can search by business description. That's kind of the best way to do it. So I'm just going to put in print and then go to the bottom here and tell them you're not a robot. And then you can search. And like I said, it's really just the name of the company. So you do have to do more looking. But here we've got, adware, bandforms technology, big idea creative. And you can see, are they small? Are they minority owned? Are they, I don't know what emerging small business, WBE women owned. So from here, you would just take these results and then search these folks' websites to see if they have the services that you need. And then when you're reporting, our person will look and see if they're certified and make that designation and see if you achieved the goals. We don't really require a lot. We're not very strict with this program, but we do want to know so that we can include it in our reporting that we do and make it a part of our program. Plus, it's just a great resource. But yeah, I mean, sometimes if there was any questions about, oh, you didn't use any small or minority or women-owned businesses, why not? Then we might ask you to fill out a good faith effort form that would tell us, hey, I've worked with these vendors. They are minority owned, but they're not certified. Or you could suggest that they get certified and then you meet the requirement. Or, we get a great deal from these folks, so we can't really switch because it would cost too much. Any of those reasons would just help us understand, what your stance was on trying to find vendors. So we try to keep it really simple. Like I said, it's going to be a small portion of the folks that you work with in your projects. So, hopefully that helps kind of give you the background. Nina, go ahead. You had a question? Oh, I think you're still on mute.
Okay. So our expenses were very tied to the venue that we had our at, and so there are things like, venue fees or electricity that's tied to a certain venue, or artist fees or travel. So like we didn't really have a lot of opportunity for like vendors outside of what we were using. Are we gonna, is this a problem?
My guess is that if we'll look at your budget.
Yeah.
It'll probably be obvious from your budget, although sometimes it's hard to describe that nuance on the statement of work because it is a pretty basic form. So if that's not communicated in the budget, then, and you get information back that, oh, you should be able to use it for equipment, then at that point, your response could be, oh, we couldn't because we needed to use this equipment because of Union Depot's requirements or because of CHS Field's requirements. I mean, 3 of your sites were city-owned property. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to be fine. Like, we know that we required you to do these things because, the Parks Department wanted it that way or whatever.
Sure. Okay, cool.
So just a little more information might be needed, but yeah, it'll be pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
And that's kind of all there is to it too, is it's just giving the background on, oh, we use this because, if that's asked for. And you don't even have to volunteer. Just for now, statement of work is all we need. Great. And Raj, I hope, do you need, I'm just going to pop the link to the cert list into the chat so that everybody can easily just go to that website. But yeah, that's great. This is a great way to find architects. There's definitely going to be quite a few on there. All right, with that, I think hopefully that covers everything. And like I said, we're going to be working with you closely from here on out. So just any specific questions you have, we'll work with you. And congratulations, Nina, on the festival, and excited to see everything that's coming up with everyone else. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
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 Thank you.